I'm just going to be as candid as possible about what my mentality was back then, just kind of to preface. When I was in high school, I didn't like the idea that I was being told to go to school kind of against my will. I kind of felt like an adult at that point, and I wanted to drop out and get my GED. And I look back and I kind of still see where I was coming from on that, in that, at the time I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to drop out and go to the Marines, and I didn't really understand why people were giving me a lot of pushback on that, because I felt like, I was pretty much an adult and I could make my decision on this. And so I kind of started rebelling in a way. I just stopped going to class. I'd show up to school so I didn't have to hear stuff from my parents, but when I got to school, I'd get dropped off and then I'd just kind of walk somewhere else. I'd just go hang out with different crowds and that were also not going to school, not going to class. And ultimately, a lot of people in Scarsdale High School got really tired of that. So they met with me and my parents and they tried to figure out what program I should go to and what would be best for my future and that kind of thing. And I was still kind of rebellious the whole way there. They tried different programs all over Westchester to try to see if I would comply and go to school, and I didn't really. I would go to school and then I would just kind of goof off. And so Scarsdale and my parents kind of just kept trying to see what would work to get me back in school and on a path to success. And they convinced me one day to get in a car and brought me to Summit. And I don't know, when I got there, I was shown around the campus, and I really liked a lot of the people that I met, and it seemed like a good environment for me that I was willing to be in. I think it was mostly the people there and the people that I met, and just the way that they talked about the experience there that made me feel comfortable. So I agreed to start going to Summit, and it turned out to be more strict and more of in terms of getting up and getting out of bed in the morning, getting to class, it turned out to be more of a strict kind of push to do what I needed to do every day from the staff. And like I said, I kind of needed that at the time. It wasn't easy, especially in the beginning, because I went from being super not disciplined and disorderly and rebellious to ultimately, over the course of those few years, getting into a routine. And I needed that routine, and that combined with the fact that, Summit allowed me to keep playing football for Scarsdale, I think both of those things kind of got me into a good routine and propelled me into college and on the right path, I think. It kind of took a little bit of reflection later after I left to realize what this whole journey had done for me. It wasn't immediately obvious, because I obviously didn't like most of that transition, because I went from being kind of a more do whatever I want to a more disciplined person that was more willing to comply with the rules of Summit and, what the staff were telling me to do and getting to class. It wasn't immediate, but looking back, it was definitely the best thing for me. One of the most important things is to think about where you want to end up. What do you want your life to look like when you're 30, 40, 50, and how do you expect to get there? If you're like me and like a lot of my classmates when I was at Summit, the way that we were before we arrived at Summit was not going to get us to a place that a lot of people would want to be. If somebody has a dream or a goal, something they want to do with their life, they're not going to get there by not working towards that goal. So what Summit does is it gets you into a routine, it gives you the discipline to reorient yourself so that you can kind of have the clarity of mind and less distraction. You have a lot of guidance around you. You have good teachers, good people, good staff that you can think about, all right, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to go to college? Do I want to go to trade school? Whatever it is, and how am I going to get there? So basically all that to say, if someone doesn't come to Summit and they just kind of keep living a life without direction, then it's generally impossible to end up where they'd really like to be. But if they do come to Summit and, can reorient themselves to start living a life with discipline and direction and guidance from intelligent people at Summit that can guide them along their career path or guide them along the path to wherever they want to go, whatever that is, it becomes a lot more possible, if not probable, that they'll end up where they want to be. When I was younger, I really focused on the personal, the individual autonomy aspect of things. I was very angry and upset by the fact that I felt like I didn't have enough autonomy over my own life. And I still get that. I still relate to that, because I would be very upset right now if I didn't have a good degree of autonomy over my life. But I think it's also important to recognize that for the most part, parents are going to be wanting their children to get to where they ultimately want to be in terms of just finding meaning in their lives, finding financial success, finding relationships. And I think it's important to realize that your parents are making decisions with that in mind.